The Deck of Many Things is one of the most amazing and exciting items in all of Dungeons and Dragons. It combines the allure of great power with the fearful risk of devastation to the point where you could even lose your life engaging with this deck of cards. And I have to say, the magic card they've created based off of it does a great job of offering you power, but there's also a risk. You could lose your life.
Magic. History.
I'm an old wizard!
The magic historian.
My bones hurt.
Greetings! Owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends, I am absolutely delighted to get to talk about the Deck of Many Things. This is an item that has been an enjoyable part of a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons campaigns that I have been a part of. It is absolutely irresistible to somebody like me. The power level of it, combined with the random nature of you not knowing what kind of reward you're going to get, and the riskiness of it, where you get that little bit of an adrenaline rush trying to avoid the dangers, it is a satisfying experience. And Wizards of the Coast has done a pretty good job with the card created off of that concept. So I figure what we'll do is we'll go through the magic card itself. I'll tell you more about the history and the concept behind the Deck of Many Things and all kinds of different possibilities that can come about as a result of using it. And then I'll even show you a card at the end that will help to mitigate some of the risk and make this card even more powerful and useful. So, the Deck of Many Things is a 5 casting cost legendary artifact. Obviously, this is supposed to be something you don't encounter very often. Full disclosure, though, when me and my friends played D&D, our playgroup ran into a Deck of Many Things more times than statistically you should. But it's just too fun. You can't help yourself. Once you've used a Deck of Many Things, you become hooked on the concept. It's so awesome. So, anyhow, 5 casting cost legendary artifact, 2 and tap it. Roll a d20 and subtract the number of cards in your hand. If the result is 0 or less, discard your hand. So the bigger a hand you have, the higher the risk of losing your hand becomes, which is obviously an inherent danger that comes along with it. But it's not the only danger that's included with this card. So that's just the activation. What happens with the die roll? Well, if you roll 1 to 9, you return a card at random from your graveyard to your hand. If you get 10 to 19, you get to draw 2 cards. That's pretty amazing overall. You're only paying 2 mana to tap and activate this thing. And if you didn't have to discard your hand from it, and you get to draw 2 cards, 2 mana to draw 2 cards is pretty bonkers. But it gets even more bonkers if you roll the natural 20. And I have to say, I genuinely love the fact that they have brought natural 20 concepts into the Dungeons and Dragons Magic set. Because when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, if you roll a 20, that's like a critical success, a critical hit, however you want to look at it. But rolling a 20 is always good times. It means you've done really, really well. So a 20 in this case lets you put a creature card from any graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. When that creature dies, its owner loses the game. Now let's make sure we're all on the same page so that nobody's confused. Owner cares about whose deck the creature card came from. So if you reanimate one of your opponent's creatures, your opponent is the owner of that creature. So as long as you have one of your opponent's creatures, then when the creature dies, your opponent loses the game because they're the owner of that creature. Just so you're aware of how insane that ability is. So the idea behind the Deck of Many Things in Dungeons and Dragons is that it's literally a deck. There's 2 variations. There's a 13 card variation and a 22 card variation. And what happens is when you go to use the deck, you have to state how many cards you're going to draw from the deck. You can't change this number. So if you have the deck and you choose, I'm going to draw 5 cards, you have to draw 5 cards. Now, you don't have to draw them all at once. You basically, after you've drawn 1 card, you have up to an hour to draw the next card. And so it goes on like that. So if you drew 5 cards, you could actually take 5 hours with 1 hour between each card draw. And because some of the things that happen with these cards are absolutely insane, you might need a breather after them. But let's say you decide after 3 draws, you're like, oh, no, I don't want to draw any more cards. You have no choice. If you don't draw a card within the next hour, the deck will literally just do all of your card draws for you at once. It will just start spitting out however many cards are left, and they all happen at the same time, which could be absolutely disastrous, right? Now, the type of things that can happen when you draw these cards are varied, and I made a list of a good number of them. One of them is it can permanently change who you are and your disposition. In terms of, if you were generally a nice person, it could just turn you into an evil, selfish, like, I'm all about me, I'm gonna go and kick dogs, or worse level individual. And if you were somebody who loved kicking dogs, all of a sudden you could turn into like, oh, I'm Mr. Happy Go, let's go help the old lady go cross the street. Like, fundamentally change your personality and morality. Just like that. You can end up captured and trapped in an interdimensional space, and the magic that surrounds it is so powerful that only the most learned mages that have the highest level magics would even be able to find and free you. You would need the top tier magic that exists in the world of Dungeons and Dragons, that very few master, to even locate the individual who's imprisoned, let alone free them. So you can literally just be stuck in this interdimensional space forever. And that happens just like that when you draw the wrong card. Absolutely crazy. You can end up cursed by the gods, where misfortune favors you. If something can go wrong, it's probably going to. Basically, flip a coin, whatever the side is that you don't want it to land on, that's the side it's going to land on. Not every time, but enough for people to notice that you are genuinely unlucky. Then you have nice ones like the ability to change fate. Just one instance, you can change one event, either something that's already happened in the past or something that's happening right now, and the ability to do that remains with you for the entirety of your life. So you could draw this one card, and then 10 years later, you could decide to undo an event from your past or something that's just happened, whatever you want. That's pretty potent and would have the ability to ripple through time and make changes to the world, depending on what event it is you chose to remove and undo, right? Then you've got things like a powerful devil becomes your permanent enemy. And we're talking a high-level devil from, we're not talking about some little imp. We're talking about a massively powerful devil lord, similar to the Archduke of Avernus that we spoke about yesterday. Some really intense being. You could end up with a giant pile of jewels worth millions of dollars just appearing in front of you. You could instantly be basically turned into a moron. You could have your intelligence sapped and spend the rest of your life as a dullard. A powerful magical weapon could appear in your hand. You could have a knight show up who's basically like, I was driven to you by destiny and I'm here to serve you for the rest of my life. So you have a powerful manservant whose loyalty can never be challenged or changed. And then on the other hand, you could draw a card that secretly turns one of your closest friends or allies against you, and they hate you now. Maybe they have a gnawing jealousy about you and your success deep in the pit of their stomach. But the thing is, you don't know that they've turned against you. They still pretend to be your friend until a really critical moment when they turn on you to your massive detriment. That's crazy. The idea, you just drew one card out of a deck and it permanently changed the mind of somebody that you deeply care about into forever being your unchangeable enemy. That is just absolutely amazing. You can literally lose all physical wealth, and that means all your physical possessions. You would lose, you're wearing a nice shirt, it's gone. All your money, your home, your job, all of it. It all just disappears in the blink of an eye. There's so many different things that can happen. There's actually one card that summons up a miniature death that has a scythe and it will come at you, and the death will show up and be like, I am here for him. But if anybody else ends up trying to engage and helping you, they also have a miniature death that springs up and attacks them as well. And while they're not the full-on Grim Reaper, they're very, very potent beings. And anybody who's slain by one of them can never be resurrected. Absolutely nuts. You could lose every magical item that you own. You could instantly be granted a kingdom. You could also gain the ability to have one answer at any point in your life. You could have one answer to a major dilemma. It will give you the information that you need and how to use that information to solve your problem, and it will be 100% accurate, provided by outer planar beings, right? Or you could have your soul sucked out of your body, trapped in some object on a distant plane of existence that's guarded over by incredibly powerful beings. So there is a wide range. That's not even everything that can happen, right? Actually, speaking of that, on the card artwork, there's 3 cards that have been revealed there. You've got the Jester, the Sun, and the Skull. In terms of card pulls, 2 of these are great. One of them is terrible. The Skull card is the one that actually brings up the Reapers that are going to come after you. But the Sun card, that gives you a bonus in experience and a beneficial magical item. Just boom, here you go. Here's a magic item you can use of decent strength that instantly appears, and also you've gained a bunch of knowledge. You could end up leveling up. And the card that they're holding right there in their hand, the Jester, gives you the option. Reward right now, or potentially more reward or risk. You have the option of either gaining a bunch of experience or drawing 2 more cards from the deck. So ultimately, the deck of many things is a very dicey situation where the rewards are big, but the risks are big too, right? It feels great. So the deck of many things really, to me, helps encapsulate that concept, right? First of all, there's the fact that when you roll the d20, if things don't go your way, you discard your entire hand. So right there, you're losing a bunch of your magical knowledge possessions, however you want to look at it, right? And then the 1 to 9 return card at random from your graveyard to your hand, that obviously represents some sort of beneficial, but maybe not too beneficial result that you've got here. The drawing 2 cards feels like you've gotten a great beneficial response, but the 20 comes across as both either a great beneficial or a really dangerous scenario for you, right? Because how it works is you get to put a creature card from any graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It doesn't say that you get to choose whether it happens or not, though. So if your opponent has no creatures in the graveyard and you roll a 20, that means that you have to put a creature from your graveyard onto the battlefield. And then that means the second part of the ability that says when that creature dies, its owner loses the game. Once that creature's out, you have to protect it at all costs. Because if that creature dies, you lose the game, right? So there are situations where your opponent could remove their graveyard instantly in response, depending on how things go. Maybe they got a scavenging ooze or something. They just go boom, 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 eat all my creatures in response to you activating this. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, I wasn't paying attention. No, and you roll the 20, you're like, oh no, I have to bring a creature back from my own graveyard. The risk is real. So the fact that it makes you possibly discard your entire hand and can make you outright lose the game, it's not statistically likely that you'll lose the game, but the potential exists. And that totally feels like the deck of many things, because you'll notice as I went through the list of stuff, the majority of the stuff is beneficial. You have a good chance of getting the goodness, but if you hit the badness, it can be really bad. And discarding your hand is bad, but losing the game is very bad. So ultimately, I think this is a fantastic execution for the deck of many things. It really does feel powerful but dangerous. Now, I said there's a way to mitigate that risk to a degree, and that is by using the Pixie Guide, which is a really cool concept. Pixie Guide is 1 blue and 1 for a 1/3 flying fairy that grants an advantage. If you would roll 1 or more dice, instead roll that many dice plus 1 and ignore the lowest roll. So you get to use 2 d20s with the deck of many things, and whichever dice roll is lower, you get to ignore. So that is going to help you avoid the card discard scenario right off the bat, and it's going to increase the chance that you're going to be able to get the higher results of drawing 2 cards or bringing a creature back from the graveyard. So that's a great way to help reduce your risk. Also, I have to admit, it's another cool little tie into Dungeons and Dragons. If you don't know about Dungeons and Dragons character creation, one of the ways of creating your character is to roll 4 6-sided dice for a stat and then drop the lowest die. So rolling additional dice and dropping the lowest result is already a concept in Dungeons and Dragons, which if you already know about it, it's cool. It adds an extra layer to the card, but if you don't know about it, you don't need to. It still feels great as an ability. And conceptually, I like this card because of the flavor text. It says, pixies are well known as pranksters, but some delight in more helpful magic. I like this because whenever you have a particular type of creature or whatever, you're going to have the norm where the majority go this way. But then there's always going to be some who go the other way. So pixies going out and causing problems, being whimsical little beings. I like the idea of some of them being whimsical in a way where it's like, actually, I'm drawn to helping people more. I like seeing their reactions of delight and happiness. And I really like the fact that the artwork shows somebody who probably knows pixies that are usually a problem, because that is one of the most skeptical looks that I have ever seen in a piece of Magic card. The pixie's like, boom, here's some magic to help you. And Buddy's like, yeah, help me, I'm sure. You know what I mean? It's got a fun vibe to it, and it does work quite well with the deck of many things. So, my friends, let me know what you think about this card. Does it excite you the same way it excites me? I want to give a big thank you to all of my patrons. Thank you very much for supporting what I do here. And I will see all of you, my friends, in the next video.